Hello, everyone. Coach Robert here to tell you about these chess symbols that you might have seen if you've been reading any chess games lately. You might wonder why these symbols even exist. Well, some time ago, we only had paper resources, books to study chess and disseminate chess information. And since there's so much information in chess, it's important not only that that information be compact, but also that it be something that you can read and understand in any language. So these symbols exist to make common expressions about chess positions fit easily on the page and also be easy to understand no matter what your native language might be. So let's talk about these symbols one by one. The first one is this Exclam, and the Exclam or exclamation point, it means good move, and this is probably the most intuitive. You might expect some kind of maybe feeling of elation when you see a good move, especially in your own game. And so this kind of exciting looking symbol will come immediately after a move that the annotator who wrote the notes to the game thinks is really good. So this is to communicate to the reader some special emphasis on that move. I know that in recent times, people have been creating software to automatically annotate your games, and they add these symbols in there as well. I think the computer's idea of what's an exclamatory move or a questionable move or whatever, those things are based more on like a numerical evaluation of the position. So when you see this in a book that was written by a person, they probably are putting that symbol in there as a special emphasis to you that says, hey, this particular move is important. It's not just that the evaluation has changed a lot or something like that. It's really that they want to emphasize that move for you for learning purposes or to contextualize it with the other moves. So the next one is this question mark. This means questionable move. It just means the opposite of the other one. So generally, if you see a question mark after your move, after someone has annotated it, it's a bad sign. It probably means that you've made a game-losing mistake, at least if you're playing against someone who's capable of punishing a mistake of that magnitude. It's very severe. Now, what's less severe are these next two symbols in the first row. It's the interrobang, that's the one on the right, and the flipped version of it, which doesn't have a name in English as far as I know. But the first one is considered to be an interesting move, and the second one is considered to be a dubious move. And I've seen these symbols get a lot of different kind of use because they mean very similar things. But in general, a dubious move is something that it has some potential to work out and be a useful move. But the objective evaluation of the move after you've analyzed it deeply is probably that it's a mistake, like the question mark moves. But the interrobang, which is the question mark and then the exclamation point, is more like, this is more interesting. And interesting is like, it might be risky, but at the very least, you're getting some kind of practical reason for playing that move. It makes sense to do it, even though it maybe isn't the best move objectively. And these symbols are very similar, and I even think they're not standard across various editorial sources or platforms. I think people use these symbols kind of differently. To say not consistently. They're very similar, but I don't think people use them the same way all the time. So you can develop your own way of using them if you like, but just keep in mind that if you're reading this in, for example, ChessBase or in Foreman or somewhere else, they might have some particular ideas in mind. And just to reiterate, the one on the left, which is the exclamation point and then the question mark, is called interesting move. That's not a standard English character. But the one on the right, the interrobang, which is the question mark and then the exclamation point, means dubious move. Now, it's a lot clearer when we get to the double exclamation point. It means that this move is really, really great. Okay, this is an outstanding move, as they say. So it's just for extreme emphasis that this move is somehow brilliant and great. I almost never see back-to-back double exclamation point moves because they are, just super good and very rarely awarded to any move. Now, for the next one, the double question mark, this one I think you're a lot more likely to see back-to-back. Because it's a lot easier to make two really horrible moves in a row than it is to make two brilliant moves in a row. So the double question mark is kind of like, what are you doing? Horrible, hideous blunder. Basically just means blunder. I should also add here that when someone's in a bad position, I think it's tempting to award them many question marks, dubious moves, and blunder, double question mark moves. But in good editorial notation, you should not be slathering on these symbols everywhere. In fact, for the symbols that I've just mentioned, you can only choose one of them for any particular move. But even on back-to-back moves, right, it's probably not great to like just put tons of question marks or tons of exclamation points, because it takes away the meaning of the symbol, which is another one of my criticisms of, for example, the chess.com game annotation feature. I think it overuses the symbols and uses them in kind of weird ways that are not helpful for learning. So typically when there's sort of an idea at play over a series of moves, I think it's good to put the annotations only on the most significant part of the sequence. For instance, if you have a combination, right, and the first move of the combination puts you beyond the point of no return, you've started a combination, but it's a bad combination, you should probably award a question mark to that move and not to the rest of the combination until maybe like a point where you think that the person who played the combination missed a key move, and then you could annotate that move in particular instead of just putting question marks across the entire combination. That way it's a lot more clear what you're getting at, and that's better for learning and just for reporting in general. So this next one that we're coming to is our Tsuxwang symbol, which is hard to say and even more difficult to understand. It's the circle with a dot in the middle. It might even be hard to see the dot because I'm using the chess base typeface for these symbols. But yeah, when you see this in a game, it's typically going to be just a circle with the dot in the middle. So what this coup de shot looking symbol means is that the last move that was played right before the symbol appears puts the other person into a state of Tsuxwang. And if you don't know very much about Tsuxwang and you want to learn more, you could search for that term on my channel. I have covered Tsuxwang many times. Not as its own lesson, so maybe I should recommend my When Is It the Endgame video, because we talk about Tsuxwang as one of the main characteristics of endgames. So Tsuxwang is a situation where your opponent has their pieces all in their best possible squares, but because it's their move, they have to make their position worse. So we have a special symbol for that because it happens very often and is very important when we're annotating games. So this next one is the square, and what the square means is only move. I find this symbol especially useful, but it's also tempting to use it too much. Only move means that you have many legal moves possible, but only one move is able to continue the game. And it's good to note these moments, because when you have only a single option, it might not be obvious to the reader who's studying the game that there really was only one move there. And so it points out to the reader that, hey, maybe you should look at these other options here and see why this is the only move. And that's a good instructive moment. It also says something about the position itself, that maybe it's a dangerous kind of position where you have to walk a fine line to survive. Now, the entire second row of the symbol palette that I'm showing you here has to do with evaluation of the position itself. And this is a sort of contentious topic, in my opinion, because people these days often will give a numerical assessment. They'll say this is plus 0.4, minus 1.2, these kinds of things, which is especially arcane for people who are not super well acquainted with chess engines, or who don't care for such abstractions. Like the cent-a-pawn difference between white and black is not helping them. They want to know, is white winning? Is black winning? How much are they winning? Is it equal? That kind of thing. So, starting on the left, what we have here is white wins. That's the plus, and then a minus immediately next to the plus. And all these symbols look quite similar, so it's a little bit maybe irritating if you're used to more distinct symbols, but there is a rhyme and reason to it. So whenever it's a plus next to a minus, it means someone is winning. And if the plus comes first, it means white. It's kind of like how we usually set up the board with white on one side and black on the other side. So white is like the left side, black is like the right side. So the plus means it's in favor of white. The minus means it's against black. So plus minus means white's winning. It doesn't mean that white will win, but it means that their position is something that could be won with probably just a little bit of technique. Like even if they falter, they're probably still much better. This next symbol, the plus over the minus, means white is better. And white is better is basically like a winning evaluation still. But if you make a mistake along the way, you're probably going to slip to equality or even be worse. But it is a considerable advantage. A lot of the time when I see a strong player see this engine evaluation plus over minus, they're like, okay, white is winning here. And of course, whenever these symbols are flipped, it means that it's in favor of black. So on the far right side, you can see there's a minus plus, that means black's winning. There's a minus over plus, that means black is better and probably still winning. And then there's the ones with the equal, with the plus and the equal. These are a sign that it's nearly equal. And if the plus is above the equal sign, it means that white is slightly better. And if the plus is below the equal sign, it means that black is slightly better. The equal sign is obvious. It means that the position's equal. I usually only put the equal symbol when it's like very difficult not to draw the position. And the reason for that is there are many, many, many equal positions in chess, but you can still play for a win in most equal positions. And therefore, I don't find it especially helpful to put this symbol all the time. I sort of, I will put this symbol when the position becomes very equal, like draw is going to happen, but also when the evaluation has slipped. Because at the beginning of the game, we say the position's equal. I would never put like plus equals for the beginning of the game. So I put no annotation for the evaluation until something distinct happens in which I think there is like a very real advantage for one side. So let's say I'm playing a chess game and I'm playing white, and at some point I think I'm winning. I'll put plus minus at that move and some justification in my variations. But then if it slips, I would update the evaluation and put like maybe plus over minus, maybe white's still winning. Or if I make a catastrophic blunder, I might put 2 question marks on that move, and then also immediately after the 2 question marks, the minus plus black is winning. So when there are big changes in the evaluation, I think it's good to use these symbols to mark the change in your opinion of how the game is going. And also it's good to note that you can put any of these symbols in the first row together with the symbols in the second row. They annotate different things. In fact, you can put like question marks or exclamation points with the Tsuxwang and the only move symbol. Okay, now in the third row, oh, I'm sorry, I missed one symbol. So the infinity looking symbol in the middle, it means unclear. And unclear, I reserve for very chaotic positions, and I think this is true for the majority of annotators, because when you put unclear, it kind of shows that none of these other symbols apply very well. And it's kind of rare that one side is not better, so it should be some kind of equal, but not a clear kind of equality. Like, for example, going into a draw by force, or one where the imbalance in the strategy is something that's kind of like easy to pick out when you've been studying this for a while. If only in like very, very strange positions, I put the unclear symbol. Now, compensation on the third row, all the way on the left, this one that looks like the infinity over the equals, I use this one pretty often. It means that in the position there's a big imbalance between white and black, but whoever has the more traditionally regarded worse side, for example, being down material, if this symbol appears, it means that they have some kind of just compensation for what they've lost. They have some balance in their favor in the position, some intractable, intangible things, like maybe they have an attack on the king, or maybe they have more space. These kinds of things are compensation for your material, and that symbol lets you know to look for that compensation. Now, the 2 arrows opposing each other, this means counterplay. And this symbol I like to use because even if the position is better for white or better for black or something, it's good to note when someone is playing a move that maybe it doesn't objectively make the position more in their favor, evaluation-wise, but it creates chances for them to come back into the game. Those are positions where counterplay is taking place. And I think this symbol is really important for that reason. The next symbol, the arrow pointing up, that's our initiative symbol. So this means that the side who just played that move, they're controlling the play with the move that they just made. They are controlling the course of the game, they're creating threats, and their opponent has to be on the back foot to stop those things, or else make some kind of dynamic play to take over the initiative themselves. The one next to it is very similar. It's the arrow pointing to the right, and that means with attack. And I think that's pretty easy to understand. It means that there's some kind of dangerous attack going either against the king or against some vulnerable pieces. And you put that symbol after the move that initiates the attack. The one that looks like a little arrow circling back on itself, this is our development advantage. And that means just that one side has more pieces developed than the other, and that this is a meaningful thing. I wouldn't put development advantage in a position where the side with the development advantage has no way to really utilize it. I would only put that in a situation where it's meaningful, where the opponent is never going to really catch up to the development with good play. The one that looks like a cross in a circle, this symbol is called side note, which also means time pressure. I like this symbol a lot because it's a little bit verbose to write in your comments to a game like, at this time I had this much time left and I was in time pressure. You know, it's like a long sentence to write, and you'd have to do it for yourself and for your opponent. So instead, just put this little cross in a circle at the end of the move. It means that this move was played when some time pressure is happening. It means that time's low for that side. Usually you won't put this for a blitz game or a rapid game, but for classical chess, it makes sense to take note of that, especially as you're approaching move 40 if you're playing time controls where you have sudden death. The N symbol, this one means novelty, and this is something that is most relevant in the context of opening theory. Novelty means that this move has not been played before, and probably it's insinuating that this move is a good move that has not been played before. Maybe it's an improvement on an existing theory, or maybe it's some theory that has developed recently but hasn't happened on the board yet, and this is the first time that it's occurring. So it's good to take note of these things because it means that the game might be at the forefront of opening theory. Or it could mean that they've deviated from opening theory and they're playing on their own. They've played some kind of interesting move. At any rate, it definitely marks the end of preparation when you see this N. The two R's is a boring one. This means editorial annotation. Just means what you're about to see is something that the editor wrote in. The one next to it, the humpy looking thing, the semicircle, it means better is. And this symbol goes in front of the move that is an improvement over whatever the main line is in your game. So for instance, if you're playing a game as black and you made one move, but you think another move is better, you might add a variation. And then at the beginning of that variation, put this symbol that looks like a little semicircle in order to mark that you think this move that you are writing in the notes is better than what you played. The next one, the less than equals, it means worse is. So it's kind of the opposite of the semicircle thing. And it means that there's another move that is worth mentioning, but is worse than what was actually played. And this might sound kind of silly because I know a lot of people who are writing annotations for their games, they only want to write down like good moves and good things, and they don't want to acknowledge any bad things. I don't know why that's the case, but that's the impression I've gotten when I'm trying to help a lot of lower rated players start annotating their games better. But it's important to acknowledge some bad moves because sometimes the bad move is very logical, and the way that the bad move doesn't work is instructive or informative about why the main move was played. It's not obvious to everyone why the move was played when they're reading it, so it's good to use a symbol like this to explain some small variations that enhance the clarity of your main line. The equal symbol appears twice, which is a little bit tricky. The equal symbol appears as an evaluation symbol. That's in the second line of the symbol palette. And on the fourth line, the equal sign means equivalent is. So this means it's the equal sign is going to appear, I think, before the move, but it's going to mean that this other move or other sequence is just like what happens in the main line. And that adds clarity by answering the question, well, what if they play this other move? Because for many people, they want to know, well, what happens if the alternative takes place? And if it's equivalent, that sort of assuages any concerns that they might have. You just show them how it ends up becoming the same, or how it's equivalent in your notes. These two triangles at the very end of the symbol palette are pretty cool too. The pointing up triangle means with the idea, and then often you'll put in a null move. You'll skip a move and then demonstrate what happens if the opponent doesn't do anything, and then you'll show what move was being prepared by the previous move. Or you might put in like a move that is obvious for black, or I mean, like let's say it's black. Like you're playing white. You played a move. You put in this triangle symbol into a side variation, saying with the idea, and then you'll like give an example move for black, and then what white is trying to do, and then you just demonstrate the variation. The upside down triangle is also pretty cool. It means directed against, and so it's the same kind of thing, but you're showing what you were attempting to prevent with your last move instead of what you were preparing with your last move. Okay, so these are some of the standard and even like not so standard symbols that you will frequently see in chess in your annotations if you're reading Informant or if you're reading some chess books. I mean, every chess book basically uses symbols like these, although the ones that you should really focus on are the ones that criticize the moves. That's the exclamation points and question marks, and the ones that evaluate the position. That's the pluses and minuses and the equal signs. These other ones are kind of extra, and you will see them at some point, but the most critical ones are the ones I just stated in rows 1 and 2. All right, well, I hope this was helpful for you, and hope to see you in one of my live streams. Take care.